Welcome back to the Damn Parenting Podcast. I'm Eva and I'm really glad you're here. Now today's a special day for a few important reasons. It's Hugging Day, and yes, that's officially a thing. A whole day dedicated to hugging other humans, or kids and partners, and dogs and cats I'm sure are allowed. Maybe even a pillow. I'm sure they're pretty flexible with the rules. And it's also, and this might be even more important, Sweatpants Day, which, well, feels incredibly aligned with the parenting experience. Hugging Day was created back in the 1980s to help people just get through that winter dip, the long stretch between Christmas chaos and Valentine's Day pressure, which honestly feels on brand with parenting. Because if there's one thing parents could use more of, especially at this time of year, it's warmth, connection, and small moments that feel good. And that's exactly what today's episode is about. But before we go any further, a little permission. This is a low-pressure listening episode. So if you're walking the dog, folding your laundry, wearing your sweatpants you absolutely did not plan to change out of today, or half listening while mentally planning dinner, you're doing it perfectly. Just let the episode sit with you. Let it land where it lands. And if at some point a small moment of joy shows up, maybe a warm drink or a biscuit, maybe just even a deep breath, it counts. That's already the practice. And I really encourage you to stay with us till the end today because we're going to share a few tiny joy practices you can actually use in real life, even if you only have 5 minutes and very little energy. Now, today we're talking about joy. Not grateful despite being exhausted or finding my magic in this chaos, and definitely not just be positive. We're talking about real everyday joy, the kind that shows up mid-morning or in mismatched socks, between the snack requests, or when no one is having a personal breakdown. We hear a lot about parenting stress, and it's for a very good reason. But there's also growing evidence that small practices of awareness, connection, and recovery can genuinely change how parenting feels. So instead of asking, how do I survive this phase? We're asking, where can I let joy help me today? And to explore that, I'm joined by someone very special. Today's guest is Ava from the Joy Embassy. She's a psychologist specializing in joy, and she believes joy isn't something we earn. It's a resource we can gently build inside real life. And just to be clear, this isn't about forcing happiness. It's about making room, even for 30 seconds at a time. So grab your tea or coffee, enjoy your sweatpants, and let's talk about it. Ava, welcome to Damn Parenting.
Thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here and a joy to do so.
Hey, there we go. The first word of joy from you. So first off, can you actually define joy?
Well, there are many different ways that we can define joy and many different approaches to it. One of my favorite definitions is joy as a felt sense of connection to what's really important, to what's really meaningful to us. And what I love about this definition is that it gives you a new view of joy, because I would say that most people, when you say joy, like, what do you think of?
I was just thinking that something brings me happiness. I don't think it's attached to my values. That's
exactly. It's like it's something nice, something that feels good, a positive emotion, maybe something light. We can imagine smiling or laughing a little bit, maybe moving in a nice way, like doing a little dance. And those are all very nice and fine things to experience. But joy is more than that. It's much bigger than that. And actually, joy is a motivational system. So it's not just a feeling. It's not just a positive experience. It's a really nicely, highly evolved system that reinforces return. So what that means, it's something that gets us to pay attention and something where we experience, hey, this is important. This is meaningful. Then we feel joy, and then we feel, I want more of that. And I want to return to this. So it's a way that nature has helped us evolve, and a way that our body and mind have evolved to get us back to things that are really important to us. And when we think of joy in this way, it's not a nice to have anymore. It's a resource really that we can use. And as international families, after big transitions, after moves, or even just after becoming parents, after doing it day in and day out, starting new careers, just going through so many changes, identity changes, after being stretched so thin because the demands are so great, it can be really beneficial to think of, hey, I already have something within me, like this system that I can use intentionally. So I don't have to wait for joy to appear. I don't have to be at the mercy of accident or luck to just say, oh, you know what? I give up. Joy is something I either get or I don't get. And maybe I'm not getting quite as much of it lately, but what you gonna do? There's nothing I can do about it. When we change the story or when we become aware of the real story, and that's that joy is a motivational system that reinforces return. It's a sense of connection to what's important with the motivation to return to it. Then we can use it intentionally. And then we can see, okay, hey, what can I find in this toolbox of mine? And how can I build my resources? How can I find energy from it and build my capacity from it?
So speaking of that, I do want to say when parents probably hear make space for joy, they're probably thinking, yeah, okay, after bedtime or once all those dishes are away or the washing's done or whatever. So you do speak about joy being a practice, but what does that actually look like for one of our normal, slightly chaotic parenting days?
So the first thing that I would say is that we start with just setting intentions for ourselves and allowing ourselves to actually feel joy and to look for joy. And it's sort of the base work. It doesn't mean that you have to like meditate on it for an hour. It just means that when things are feeling tough or when you've had like extended phase of things feeling tough in your life, it's okay to go, you know what? I am allowed to feel some joy. I am allowed to want for joy. And part of the goal here with this episode is to help parents realize the importance of joy so that it's kind of working there in the background so that when we are handling all our demands and all our schedules and all the stresses and everything that we know, yes, sure, all those burning fires are important, but so is our joy because it's not frivolous. So it's not just a cherry on the top that we get to at some point, which never comes. And if we always keep pushing it down the to-do list, and it's like, yes, sure, but I have to do my job well. I have to parent. I have to parent when I'm tired. I have to parent when I'm stressed. I have to maybe try to be a good partner. A good is a relative thing, so I don't mean a perfect, but just like a functional one. I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm a business owner or an employee or a stay-at-home mom. Everything comes with its own challenges. And if we try to see joy as a nice to have line on the to-do list that we'll get to once we've done everything else, we will never get to it. I try to weave it into my everyday life. So that starts with first just the permission, just the intention of like, yes, I want at least a little bit more of this. 5% more joy. Fine. That's a doable goal. That doesn't take a whole like life change. That doesn't take a deconstruction of everything you know and love. So we start with setting the intentions and we start with allowing ourselves the search for joy, if you want. And then we just start by noticing. I usually like do it in 3 steps, or like there's the triad of joy that I like to think of. And one is like noticing, savoring, and creating. So I'm just going to put it out there so that people can then fill in the gaps. And the baseline is fine. We have allowed ourselves some joy. And then the first step is just notice what is already there. We take a small pause. We just give ourselves a little bit of space and we just notice. And that can mean, you know what, I'm noticing that I'm in an apartment that has me feeling safe and nice, and maybe that I desired before and I didn't have, or in a location that I wanted to move to and I did. Or I'm noticing that my child's laugh has changed a little bit and maybe it has become a little bit more grown up. There can be some like nostalgia there, but we can just notice something that we appreciate in our surroundings. We can notice our child also maybe needing us a little bit less and making space for something else to come in there. Or if we are in a season of high demand parenting, I mean, most of them are. If we are in a season of having a newborn where there isn't really a lot of space for anything else, then we can just focus maybe on the tiny physical things on it. Like we focus on the tiny fingers that we see in front of us or that we feel on ourselves. We focus on the weight of this little body that might be sleeping on us. Even if that said child is screaming, we can focus on, hey, here is something that I wanted. I wanted to become a parent. I wanted to be a mom. And that is not to ignore the difficult lived reality at the moment. It is just to make space for something else as well. That's what we are doing here in the joy business, that as I see it. So we are not trying to convince ourselves that something is not hard. We are just trying to see what else is there and which parts are good. Where is there some joy for me? And we're trying to keep it in our awareness at the same time. And the thing is, our brain is already primed for the negative stuff. So we already have an evolutionary bias, a negativity bias that makes us go, yes, this is urgent. You got to do this. Pay attention here. So we don't have to actually train this part of ourselves. We know that. We just react. Because, of course, the cost of not reacting to something negative in our environment was much greater than the potential cost of not paying attention to the nice stuff. But once we are in a fairly safe environment, joy appears also as a signal of this safety. So it has developed as a signal of safety, of surplus, of things being good, which means, hey, we can turn off the survival mode. We can turn off the narrowing of attention that makes us focus just on the threat that's in front of us. We can kind of switch that off for a little bit, and we can see what we can grow from there. And that's where the broaden and build theory really nicely comes in. And the theory says that the positive emotions, and we will talk about it in terms of joy, they have evolved and they serve this really, really great purpose. And they serve for us to broaden our attention. So our attention expands. We are more open to novelty. We are more open to exploration, to play, to trying new things so that we can build new things. We build our capacity. We build our resources. We build the relationships. And this is like where the joyous connection definition comes in. So we connect to what's important in our environment so that we then, with this expanded capacity, we can react to future threats better. So in this sense, joy is also essential. It allows us to react better in the future. It allows us to increase the likelihood that we will, A, survive, and then have another opportunity to build these resources and then feel the positive emotions again. So there's a really nice positive upward spiral that happens. So when we know of this, we can maybe take joy a little bit more seriously and use it as this tool and this signal that it is. So to come back to like a little bit more practical, or like how it looks in the real life. If you remember that I said, okay, we have like the noticing, savoring, creating. The noticing, I will repeat it because I think it's really nice. We can always start with just the sensory experience that we are having. So what we are seeing, what we are hearing, what we're feeling in our body. And it can be as easy as just feeling the absence of something as well. So, if you have a headache and it stops, you're suddenly much more appreciative of it not being there. So we can also bring to mind something that we have experienced as difficult and realize, hey, it's not going on at the moment. That's also a tiny source of joy. So it doesn't have to be something big, something polished, something really intense. It can be something really simple, a really mild experience. Just notice what is already there in terms of warmth, in terms of maybe interest. It can be just a little spark of an interest, some tenderness, some relief, some ease. That's enough. All of that opens the door for joy to come in. So we start with noticing what's already there. And that means you don't have to change anything, because I'm sure anyone listening to this already has joy around them, even without changing a single thing. If you just take a moment to take a short pause and look around you and look within you, you will find something that's already joyful, already there. Then the next step, or a different approach if you want, is to savor this experience. So to really take it in. And the thing is that most positive experience we go through are fairly mild. So, we don't have to chase the highs of like these huge rushes of excitement and thrill, enthusiasm. They're nice when they come, but if we try to organize our life around chasing only these like big moments of joy, we will actually experience it more as a roller coaster, and it will be a little bit more extra chaotic, and we will be more dissatisfied, actually, because we will feel the lack of them more frequently, simply because they are the type of experiences that we cannot experience all the time. They would deplete us too quickly. We wouldn't have the energy for it. So that means that the most positive experiences that we have and experience on a daily basis are fairly mild. And that's fine. What we can do with that, we can make them go a bit further. So by savoring them, we can make their effect a little bit more stronger. The way that we do that is like we keep them in awareness just a little bit longer. So if we would just notice something nice, let's say I like finding like little toys and little items in weird places that my daughter leaves them. And it gives me a little jolt of joy, of appreciation, of like, look at this creativity, or look at like this wonder of having this human growing up with me and having her own little world and showing me glimpses of it. And if I do the first step of like just noticing, okay, you know what, here's a Lego in my bathroom. That's nice. And if I want to make it go further, then I just keep this in my awareness a little bit longer. So I stayed with this feeling of warmth, of interest, of appreciation, of joy. You can call it however you want to in the moment. I stay with it for like 20 seconds instead of just going about my day further. And 20 seconds is not a long time. And if that feels too long for you, do 10. Just stay with it a little bit longer, just so that you take it in. Because what we really need is not just activation of these joyful experiences. We need the installation of them as well. So the noticing part, it's the activation. We see what's there, we appreciate it. And then the installation is the savoring. So that's what actually changes our brain chemistry. That's what changes our body chemistry. That's how change happens. When we install these little tiny moments and we keep coming back to them over and over again, this is how we use our neuroplasticity. This is how we use our brain's innate ability to change. And when we do things repeatedly, we stimulate the same circuit in our brain, we strengthen it. That's why it's important to see joy as a practice. And when we repeat things, we strengthen it. And the savoring part, it allows us to install these experiences. And what we can also do, we can try to bring in more senses. So if I'm just used to seeing something, I can also pay some attention to what I'm hearing at that moment, or how my body is positioned, what I'm maybe sensing in my mouth, if there's like a certain taste or if there's a certain smell. Maybe if I'm sitting on the couch looking at my kids playing, I can become aware of the texture of my couch. I can look around, I can see like different colors. So just trying to engage different senses to make this image, to make this experience stick a bit more, to stand out. That's how we savor. So we try to amplify this experience. And again, it doesn't have to be an intense experience to be worthy of amplifying. And then we come to the third part of the triad, and that's the creating. And we cannot create joy per se, so we can set the stage for it to appear. So we can open the doors, or we can give an opportunity to joy to appear. And well, it can happen in many different ways, but some of them are, we can create little rituals that we come back to so that our brain also has this predictability, so that we know, okay, every morning I will make myself a cup of coffee. I will stand in my kitchen. I will take a deep breath. I will smell the coffee. I will enjoy it. I will sip it, even if it's like 2 sips and then something else happens. This is a ritual that I can come back to every day. And then my brain, my body is already primed for it. It's already ready. We can go back to some of our childhood favorites. They can be a nice repository of ideas, like, because sometimes the things that we have enjoyed as children, the ways that we have played, they don't have to look the same as adults, of course, but like there can be like this thread going through our interests and what brings us joy. And then when maybe we realize, okay, I have enjoyed singing as a child, and maybe I join a choir, but also maybe I make it a point to sing more in the shower. Maybe I make it a point to sing the same song in the morning as an anchor of our routine, or I play more music. I find ways to weave this into my everyday life.
Okay, well, you've answered quite a lot of questions I actually was coming up with. Every time you were talking, I had another question, but you were explaining it very well there. So thank you for that. That's quite a great TED talk, I think, nearly, because you were answering questions as I was coming up with them in my mind as you were going along. So that's actually a great way to get into this conversation.
I'm happy
One
to
of
hear
the
that.
one of the things though, you did speak about like emotions, about hard times as well there. I have spoken to you previously about it, and you often say that we can't selectively numb emotions. We can't shut down the hard stuff without also dimming joy. So, why does allowing difficult emotions actually create more space for joy?
Well, as you put it, and as we already mentioned, because there's just no granular on-off switch. So no specific like that we can go on the, you know what, this grief, oh, I will keep it turned off. And this anger, oh, no, 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 not getting there. Oh, joy, sure, I'll switch this on. It just doesn't work that way. Our brain doesn't work that way. So, in order to be able to experience joy fully and to really feel it in our lives, we just have to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. We have to allow ourselves to experience all the other emotions. Because if we put a blanket on all the emotions, and if we start numbing some of them, we will numb our positive emotions as well. We will numb joy as well. And I kind of see it as the cost of admission. So in order to have like all these beautiful human experiences, in order to have this love and appreciation and gratitude and joy and pride and all the other like the nice stuff, the price that we have to pay is we have to let the difficult parts in as well. And that's human. So the way this works is simply because that's the way our human brains and our human bodies, imperfect and fallible as they are, that's the way they function. So what we can do is be aware of it, and we can build our capacity to keep both in our hands or to allow for both. And what has happened, I would say, in some way, I think we have gotten better at talking about the difficult parts of, let's say, of parenting in particular. We have gotten or are getting better at sharing what's tough about it, the stresses, the demands, the mental load, the emotional load, the physical load, the financial load, all the loads. And I think that's very useful and very important. And that is definitely not something to be denied or ignored, but sometimes it can feel like the pendulum has swung a little bit too far in this direction, so that we could then get stuck in kind of in this misery of it. And it's not difficult to get stuck in the misery because our capacities get hijacked easily by these emergencies and by these demands. Like that's a feature. It's not a bug. It's a way for us to stay alive. But I find that because of this negativity bias, because of our brains already being so ready to see the tough parts, we have to be a little bit more intentional, or a lot more intentional, actually, to make space for the good stuff as well and to really take it in. So we need to dwell on our positive emotions to offset this negativity bias.
Something you just said there, I find actually a little bit confronting personally. I don't know if any of the listeners might have this as well. But as you were talking there, and you were talking about putting the blanket over all emotions, and then as you were saying about, how we're getting on with day-to-day life and, you're just managing, I think I kind of had a moment there of confrontation of my own emotions and how I probably have been dampening any joy moments. I've missed them because not just in parenting, but I mean, I'm sure anyone and all will agree, like I don't follow the news anymore. I haven't been able to for the last God knows how many years because it's just so crippling to see everything that's going on out there. obviously I'm aware of it because it's brought to my attention one way or another, but I realize there's certain things I'm having to protect myself against because it's just too much.
Yes.
I think most of it's since I've become a mother, my emotion box has just really opened up. So I find that I think I probably compartmentalize quite a lot of emotions and I try and just dig it down and dampen it. And then when you were talking about that, I realized, oh, I've also done that to the joy aspect too. So that was a little confronting that I didn't expect in this episode.
Well, I am sorry for that, although I am very glad that you brought it up because I am sure that people listening will recognize this, and I experienced this as well. And you know what? You're absolutely right. It is tough to be a human in these days. It's tough to be a human at any time, but we are surrounded by a lot of weight, worries. There's a part of me that just doesn't want to continue even naming those things because I know how stressful and anxiety inducing it is to become aware of it all.
Yeah.
So yes, that is a fact that's a little bit inconvenient, if we want to call it like that. But the main point still stands. So the question is, how do we allow these emotions without getting overwhelmed all the time? And the idea is, how do we allow them when we know we have some supports in place, hopefully? Because it's something that I definitely work on and struggle with and see and feel and experience. So what we try to do is actually by opening the door first to these little tiny moments of safety, of joy, and maybe you have heard of the term glimmers, which is something that has been making the rounds. And that's what glimmers are. They're like these tiny moments that signal safety and connection. And what we can do is like we can open our bodies to them and we bring them in as if they were like little separate pages of the books that we bring that build our library. So sometimes they can be just a sentence on a page, and then it all kind of builds up a little bit, and the page becomes a chapter. A collection of chapters becomes a book. And then we bring this book into this our kind of joy library and into this like experience library. But we don't bring in like 10,000 books at the same time because we would crumble under the weight of them and we wouldn't know where to put them. So when we do it in these little bite-sized pieces of like looking around ourselves, noticing the good in our lives, noticing the joy around us, we build our capacity for it like slowly. And we can also apply this to the tougher experiences. So we take them in little by little as much as we can control it, of course. Sometimes like there's something going on or there's like news event or something that we cannot let in little by little. But then we try to recover in the best way that we can. We try to, again, connect with others around it. We try to find some comfort. We try to find meaning in it. And that's also where the joy as connection, the joy as a signal of this is important and this is meaningful comes in. So that when we see all these tough things, we can remind ourselves, yes, this hurts and this is tough. And I would rather that this wasn't happening. But this is important. Like I am here because I'm here in this life. Like I'm here, I'm present because this is important to me. This is meaningful to me. And that we can then use this meaning as a sort of useful perspective switch, because not everything that's meaningful is pleasurable, but there can be joy in it. We can find joy in finding the meaning of it for us personally. And that's also why like, joy is so personal, the way that we experience it, what brings us joy, the way that we create it. And there's a lovely quote I think of often, and it says, like, while experiencing joy, we don't lose ourselves. We become more truly ourselves. So it's by Matthew Quinn Johnson, if anyone wants to find it.
I'm sure we'll have it on the Instagram post following this episode. So for the parents listening who feels too tired to even try, can we talk about a realistic joy reset or a small action or a mind shift that doesn't require any energy that we don't really have right now? It's in the midst of January already for us, right?
Of course. Well, I would hope that some of the things that we have talked about can serve as this like perspective switch. Just hearing about the joy, just hearing about the importance of it, the value of it, the function of it. I would hope that maybe even just that would be enough for joy to feel slightly more within reach for anyone listening to this. And if you have the capacity, or when you have a little bit of more space for just, and you want to try something, or you want to get started on having joy as a practice, you can try this nice little practice or a method called HEAL, HEAL, and it's by Rick Hansen. It's by this amazing neuropsychologist who does great work on joy and neuroplasticity. I fully recommend. His work is accessible also, I would say. And if we talk about the HEAL practice, so the first step, the H, is to have a positive experience, a good experience. And again, it can be something super simple. It can be something just like the fact that I'm like sitting now on a comfortable surface, the fact that I'm warm, the fact that my kids are taken care of, knowing that it's probably something very mild, and that's it, you're doing it correctly. So you don't have to look for this amazing other thing. It can also be memory. You can think of something nice. So you can just bring to mind a nice memory, a nice calm moment, something that you experienced with your kids, or something that you experienced by yourself. You can even go back to a time before kids, like it doesn't matter. Whatever feels like a nice, positive little experience to you, that's okay. So first, H, you have a good experience. Then E, you enrich it. Here is where the more specific, the better. Our brain likes the specificity. You just try to make the experience a little bit stronger, as we already talked about when it comes to savoring. So we can enrich it by having ourselves think of it just a little bit longer, trying to sort of ramp up the intensity a little bit. So if you think of it like on your phone, you edit a photo just to make it a little bit brighter, you make it a little bit clearer. That's what you can practice doing with your experiences as well. Again, you include multiple senses if you can, what you hear, what you see, what you taste, what you smell, what's around you. You can focus sometimes on the novelty of it if it's a new experience. Anyway, you do the enrichment. You just make it a little bit brighter, stronger. You stay with it a little bit longer. Then the A, you absorb it. So you can find your own best visualization of it, or whatever works best for you, just to have like this feeling of this experience is sinking into you. And what it can feel like is, you can think of it as taking a sip of coffee or tea or cocoa, and you feel like this warmth going through your body. And in that same way, you take this experience in and you feel it going through your body. Just kind of letting this warmth sink in. You can also think of golden syrup. That's kind of it can be feel a bit weird to some, and if your mind goes like, huh, what? Then fine, skip that one. But it can feel nice and like soothing, like a soothing balm that's making this experience sink into your body. Or sometimes what I like to imagine is like putting a jewel in a treasure chest. So it's like I'm having this nice experience and I'm transforming it into a jewel in my mind, and I'm putting it into a treasure chest that's in my chest, and sort of just saving this, just absorbing it, just building this capacity for it, building my like library of it. Metaphors are really nice for this because they make it easier for us to visualize this. And you can play around with these things and see what really makes it sink in better for you personally. So we've had the H, the having of a good experience, the E, enriching, the A, absorbing. And the last part is actually completely optional. So, if you've done all these three, you don't have any more capacity or you don't have any more time, that's fine. Go on about your day. And if you have a little bit more energy, you can try L, link it, and link it with something negative. Because this way, we also practice the holding of the different experiences at the same time. We give ourselves the signal, hey, I can do both. There is space for both. I can feel both the joy and the grief, I can feel both the joy and the anger, etc. So we can link it, but when we have this positive experience active and we bring to mind just a slightly maybe a negative, a moment where we lost it with our kids, like a moment where we snapped, and we just allow them to exist at the same time. And if the negative part starts to be too strong, if it starts to take over, if it starts to get into this narrative of, you know what, again, you're such a bad mom, you did it in such a wrong way. Like if we start to get into a too strong of a negative self-talk and the experience takes over, it hijacks, just drop it. Then you go back to the positive one. Because the idea is not to force ourselves to suffer through this and like to suffer through these accusations. The idea is to bring something slightly negative and then to be able to hold it in our awareness at the same time as we do with something positive. And when we make this a practice, we get better at it over time, because all these little like practice by practice, and it's a half a minute, 20 seconds, sometimes a minute, sometimes two. When we do this practice repeatedly, we change our patterns and we get better at it, and it's easier. And then we prime our minds to see the good around us more easily, to see the joy around us. And we get into this, again, an upward positive spiral. And it starts with the little shifts. It starts just with trying to do these things, even when we're tired and stressed and chaotic. If in those moments, if we can just take a little pause, and if we can notice something good as well, we are on our way for this to become a habit. And it's not toxic positivity, because it's not convincing ourselves that we are not feeling something tough. We are. We acknowledge this, and we make space for something else as well.
Well, Ava, thank you so much for joining me. It's not the episode I thought it was all going to be joy and all going to be wonderful and all glitters and wonder. But I guess that's life, right? It's the yin and the yang. It's a balance, I guess. Just like parenthood, we have joyous moments and we have 4:30 in the morning screaming mom, moments as well. So it's been actually really informative and something I highly didn't anticipate, to be honest. We had talked about this episode. We prepped for the episode, but I didn't see it going where it went. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for shedding light on joy.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope that anyone listening to this leaves this conversation feeling at least slightly more supported, feeling like joy is at least slightly more within reach, that it's not something reserved for someone else and at some other time, that we can find joy in parenting especially, but also in the rest of our lives as well. And that it doesn't take huge changes. It doesn't take huge energy investments. It just takes some intention. It takes some noticing, and it takes an allowing of it. So thank you once again. And I wish plenty of joy, plenty of a sense of connection to yourself and to others and to the things that are truly important to us, because what else is there? Like what else means more than that?
Thank you, Ava, for joining. And as I said, I really thought this episode was going to be so much lighter. And in a way, it kind of is, because I now know that joy just doesn't come on its own, and it actually has to live beside the hard ones and the heavy ones. And it's only when we recognize and accept those emotions can we make space for joy. That's something new for me for today. Thank you, Ava, again. Because joy, as we've learned, it's not about perfection. And it's not about shiny moments or trending routines. It's about noticing what we already have, about appreciating the small things, about finding comfort, even in something as simple as a cozy pair of sweatpants. And honestly, if today, hugging day, sweatpants day, if your joy looks like a warm hug or a quiet moment or just feeling comfortable in your sweatpants, it all absolutely counts. These are the moments that don't just help us feel better now, they help us bring joy back into our parenting toolbox, gently, intentionally, and in our own way. If this episode has resonated with you, I'd love you to share it with another parent, because joy, it's not selfish, it's essential. And if you'd like to learn more about Ava and her work, you'll find her at thejoyembassy.com or through the link in the show notes. Equally, head on over to Instagram. I've got a pile of carousels and reels and everything else that's going to come up from this episode, because joy is meant to be shared. So thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your hugs. Enjoy your sweatpants. I definitely am. And I'll see you next time.